Are you one of those people who claim to be the best multitasker around? In some workplace circles, it's kind of like the new fastest gun of the West, except now the goal isn't shooting someone over being called yellow, but instead it's being the best humble bragger on LinkedIn about having dual monitors. But if you're ready to strut your multitasking chops in a place that doesn't make your soul vomit, Capcom's new IP, Pragmata, may be right up your alley. From early previews, Pragmata seemed like a giant departure from Capcom's comfort zone. But as we'll see in today's demo, Pragmata is in many ways familiar territory for gaming, even familiar for Capcom itself. Welcome to my Worth Your Time series, where I break down whether in this attention-hungry economy, if games are worth your time in addition to being just worth your money. The recently released Pragmata sketchbook demo gives us a good glimpse into the future of Capcom and their plans to grow beyond just being the gaming icon with well-known series like Street Fighter, Resident Evil, and Monster Hunter. Pragmata is largely a run-of-the-mill third-person shooter set in a science fiction universe, starting out on the moon. Most of what you'll see from the demo is mechanically and aesthetically conventional, aside from one major aspect that makes the title unique: hacking. The game's enemies, mostly robots from the looks of it, have shielding that massively reduces the damage you deal, unless the player exploits their vulnerabilities, thanks to the cute android girl that rests on the main character's back. Players must constantly switch between controlling Diana for hacking and Hugh for shooting in order to keep up with the mobs that slowly chase you down. This disable before shoot mechanic feels very recognizable from older games that require you to multitask instead of run and gun, though no titles are coming to mind that require a full minigame for each enemy. There are, however, simpler systems in a game like Alan Wake, where most enemies require you to shine a flashlight on them to break their shield before firing. While this is a staple across Alan Wake's entire journey, most games only incorporate this multitasking mechanic for specific enemies or sections of their game. I feel like this is for good reason, as constantly delaying your brain the satisfaction it gets from popping heads in a sequence can end up hurting a game's pacing, especially if the thing you have to wait for seems more like a chore than a fun and ever-evolving minigame. In Pragmata's case, I'm very skeptical about whether the hacking minigame will remain fun throughout an entire playthrough, not just the demo. I can imagine having to navigate the same 4x4 grid for the thousandth time getting old eventually. Yes, there is an opportunity here to switch up the grid later on in the game, like for bosses, for example. Another apparent downside of this hacking requirement is that it comes at the loss of your ability to aim for a few seconds. This makes combat feel a bit choppy, since you can still move while you're in this phase, but you can only strafe very slowly and cannot retreat from enemies effectively. It feels counterintuitive to how I've learned to play shooting games, strafing and aiming in one fluid motion, though I can see gamers adapting to this new constraint. Pacing in the game is markedly different than players will be used to. Killing each enemy is now an individual task instead of part of a larger action flow. There is no hopping around and pulling off quick, satisfying shots in this game. Combat requires you to be more calculated, and hacking requires you to fully commit. Now, I'm not suggesting that every shooter needs to be a Doom Eternal kind of action flow, but I'm worried that Capcom is going to have to ride a thin line between challenge and frustration when deciding how to populate combat areas. Too few enemies would incentivize players to separate themselves from the pack for safe, low-stress hacking. But too many enemies would leave the player constantly dodging without ever having enough breathing room to finish a hack. Aside from hacking, the rest of the game's combat and movement mechanics were pretty smooth, and I liked that you could perfect dodge enemy attacks for a bonus. Sadly, enemy encounters were spaced out by lackluster exploration and platforming sections that take advantage of a frustrating thruster pack control scheme that is difficult to maneuver. I found all of this unnecessary since I just wanted to get back to the action. This particular game doesn't benefit from its longer spans of searching around for currency stashes or reading materials like it would in a survival horror like Resident Evil, where those lulls in action actually build suspense and make the combat feel deliberate. The pièce de résistance of this demo is a pretty impressive boss fight that does show off some fun enemy abilities, requiring you to hone your dodging skills. Plus, you get a peek at the character's finishing moves, which I usually find to be an exciting cinematic element that help balance a fight's pacing. Overall, this was probably the most fun I had during the demo. Sadly, we don't get much of a look into the game's story other than that you're stuck on the moon where something has gone wrong, the station's automated workforce has become hostile, aside from an android girl you escort to safety as you discover her unique powers. The space theme is fine, although I find this particular genre, enemies, and environments to be a bit exhausted by this point, and might not carry my attention for long unless there is something to clearly set it apart from the hundreds of other lone gunmen stranded in space titles. Being that it is Capcom, the general feel of the game does have an air of Resident Evil permeating its design, from the graphics to the level design to the enemy attacks, and of course, some strange dialogue choices. What does feel like a major departure here, however, is the lack of inventory management, at least for the time being. Guns you pick up go straight into your quick wheel and have very limited ammo aside from your constantly replenishing basic weapon. Weapons have a single magazine, which is the maximum carry, so once you run out of ammo for one of the more powerful guns, you have to find another one on the ground somewhere. There's no stocking up on ammo for big fights like you might do in Resident Evil. This choice bothered me a bit because I feel like it broke the flow of the combat yet again, having to take the time to run around the arena looking for another weapon or waiting for your pistol to recharge, which takes a while. It's easy to go from feeling stocked up and prepared to totally unarmed in less than a minute. This works in a game like Doom Eternal, where small stockpiles incentivize a faster pace by dropping ammo on kills and rewarding risk-taking. In the slower-paced Pragmata, I found it yet another chore. Overall, I feel like the game was fun, but what was presented as a revolutionary and novel gameplay mechanic actually felt more harmful than good, breaking the natural rhythm of gameplay that many people are used to and making combat feel a bit choppy. So far, I'd rate the game's potential at a modest 7 out of 10, but nonetheless, you do have to give credit to Capcom here for their willingness to go outside the mold, and I'm sure others will resonate more with the combat flow and give this game a solid launch in April of the coming year. The demo is a relatively quick experience, able to be completed in about 40 minutes or shorter. It's available on Steam right now with a link in the description if you're interested. Thanks for watching, let us know what you think about Pragmata in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Happy hacking!